Good morning, everyone. You will be so glad that you came to join us this morning. I've been hearing about this guy from Denny Sanford, the multi-billionaire philanthropist, who you'll hear more about if you don't know that name already. But I've been hearing about Mike Cunningham, Dr. Chancellor Michael Cunningham, literally for years now. And I was beginning to think the guy was a ghost, though. I would see his name, but I could never connect with him until after I finally did have a chance to run up alongside of him and try to run with him for a while and realize this guy is just kicking it.
Awesome.
So when they said there was a new sheriff in town up at National University in 2013, oh my gosh, then I began to understand why things are so different and why they're having such tremendous impact. So without further ado, Mike, thank you for making time to be with us. It's just, as a leader and as a human being, you are an amazing guy. So let's talk about this. We've got a little bit of your background. Seems like there's a lot of great people that come out of New Jersey. Our in-house attorney is also from New Jersey. They don't live there now, but they did come out. Amazing people. What has you on fire? What lights you up? What has your juices flowing? And we're going to talk about, we're actually going to be doing something very unusual. For the first time, we're going to integrate some slides that tell some of Mike's defining moments. So there's some great stuff I want to get to as well, but we're the first time we've ever done this. So there's a little bit of a sense of like, how's that going to work? But so Mike, quick, give us your flyby on what has you getting out of bed in the morning and jumping.
First of all, thank you for waking up so early to come listen to this conversation. And if I can live up to half of what these guys are saying about me, it'll be a big feat, trust me. But anyway, thank you, Ed, and thank you, Phil, for that nice introduction. I think at this point in my life, what really drives me is what drives me my whole life, and that is building world-class organizations and then working side by side with team members, learning from them, working with them, and then helping them grow their careers and as a team and as a community asset. So any industry I've been in, any job I've been in, it's always been in and of the communities in which we serve, because that was the basis from everything we did, serving the community and serving families and serving customers. So that's what we do. So
get us now from that incredible career. Actually, we're going to talk a little bit about how you ended up being the what was it? Not the glad.
The hefty man.
The hefty man. Yeah. So you look at Mike, and this guy's pretty buff, but one of your nicknames was the hefty man.
Yeah.
And we're going to talk about that, where that name comes from, and it's not what you think. Okay, so plant the seed, just hang in there.
I am the heaviest I've ever been in my life right now.
One of the things that I love about you is that you talk about that there's this sense of urgency, this drivenness to help others become the best they can be and really strive to be all that they can become. And that has now taken you with some programs at National University.
Sure.
Let's talk about that. I wasn't planning on it yet, but I think it's so important. National University has been putting the legs to some ideas that the multi-billionaire philanthropist, Denny Sanford, who calls you every day, you were able to do some things that academic research had kind of come along and said, okay, here's the research on why people get divorced. Here's research on why not-for-profits are not having impact in their communities. Nothing actionable. And an opportunity came up for you to make it actionable. Yeah. So tell us about that story,
I'll tell you
about how you met Denny.
A quick story. Denny Sanford, he's one of my best buddies now, a great guy, role model to me. You all know Malin Burnham, I'm sure. Heard the name if you haven't met him personally. He's Mr. San Diego, basically. He's 92 years young and looks better and better every day, and
he's amazing.
More energetic. But we were going, I guess, around 5 years ago, a little less than 5 years ago, going to an event to honor him at the San Diego Yacht Club. So I pull up in my black Ford truck, and then this guy in front of me with South Dakota plates pulls up in a Mercedes-Benz, a kind of beat up, older Mercedes-Benz. Guy gets out, and he says, hey, you going to the Burnham event? And I said, yeah. He goes, where is it? I said, I think it's right over here. He goes, oh, can I go with you? I said, sure. And he goes, Denny Sanford. And I look at him, I said, are you the Denny Sanford? He goes, yeah, that's me. And he said, I've been trying to get a hold of you for the last 3 years when I was dean over at San Diego State Business School. And he said, oh, Mike Cunningham, Malin told me about, and he had this memory that he knew about me, things I didn't even know about myself. It was like, wow, this is pretty impressive. This is Denny Sanford telling me this. And he goes, listen, I want to talk to you about some programs that I have that just haven't been able to get off the ground. And so I said, all right, great. So he told me, first thing was about philanthropy. He says, I get asked for money every day for thousands and thousands of dollars and millions of dollars. And many times people they don't know how to ask me. They just don't know how to ask me for money. It's always about what they need, not fulfilling my vision or how I can contribute to society. It's what they need. They have to make payroll. They need this, or they have an idea. And I said, I really wish people knew how to ask for money. Because I don't like being the only one in the group donating and then saying, oh, it's all on me. I need other people to donate too, and the folks that I donate with have to be able to ask. So that luncheon, all afternoon, he's looking at me and putting a thumbs up. I'm going, God, what is going on here? So I said, give me a week and I'll put together a plan. So I did, and we met, and I gave him the plan for the Sanford Institute of Philanthropy at National University. And it was all about metrics. What are the goals you're going to hit? What are you going to teach? We need content. And we developed that program, and at that same time, he had two other programs he developed at ASU with Michael Crow, invested around $20 million, but they didn't get rolled out nationally. So we put together some plans to roll them out nationally. And at the end of this presentation, you'll see the effects of all three programs, but that was the Denny Sanford meeting.
And Mike, what I love is you talk about KPIs, key performance indicators, is you're using that at National University as well. You came in and said to the board, guys, men and women, I'm out of here on this date. I mean, here they're excited. They've gone through this extensive search process to try and find the best visionary to lead the next generation. And you show up with great excitement, great fanfare, and one of the first things, as I understand it, is you said to them, I'm leaving you on this date. And
God
10
willing.
years. And there was a reason for that. So unpack that for us, because how many of you as entrepreneurs, and I know many of you in this room, if not all of you, how many of you have really stated what, again, begin with the end in mind? It's exactly what Mike did. Not that he's going to roll up and that's all he's ever going to do now. But he was setting it down to say, this is where I'm going, and it's going to be a great ride, and for those who want to be with us, we'll be there. But it's not going to be forever.
Yeah, when I got hired at National, it was I said that I'd do 2 5-year terms if they wanted me to, but then on my 63rd birthday, I was going to walk away from it. I retired when I was 40. Before I was retired for 7 years, and I'll talk a little bit about that. But I think it's good to have an end in sight, especially it gives your team members that you're working with saying, who wants to fill my shoes, and then you can move up in the organization. I think that's important. What I coach some of my students on in business is they're always thinking about an exit strategy. But they get it confused because the exit strategy isn't for them. The exit strategy is for their investors. And all too often I said, you know what, when you start a new business, you have to think about, at least this is my opinion anyway, you think about, I'm in it for the long term. I'm in it to grow this organization to be the best it can, and I'm ready to spend the rest of my life here if I have to be to make it successful. And the exit strategy, again, is for the investors. So a lot of folks say, no, I'm going to be in it for 2 years and I'll move on to something else. Well, no one's going to invest in you if you say, you're one and done type of a thing. But when you get to be in the position that I'm in right now, I think it's important to set that vision for the rest of the group, saying, all right, what are the goals? And I also said to my board, I said, if I can't get done what I need to get done in the first 5 years and then subsequent 5 years, then I'm the wrong guy for the position anyway.
Well, what I love about that is you really also galvanize that next group of leaders behind you, because they know there is going to be an opportunity for them to lead at a higher level, but they also have to show that they can lead at that higher level.
Yeah.
So it comes down to the whole organization.
There has to be a lot of trust there too, I believe, because when many of you will do succession planning in your organization, and you do the 3x3 boxes, and you work out who's ready now, who's ready in 2 years, who's ready in 5 years. But what I wasn't ready for was there has to be a huge amount of trust amongst all the senior team members. Because if you don't have that trust, then it gets to be, okay, I have to do something so that that person doesn't get ahead or whatever. And it creates animosity. So you have to take a few folks off the ledge and say, no, this is not a threat to you. This is a good thing that we're planning for the future, and you have just as much opportunity as anyone else.
I was in another meeting here at Corporate Alliance 2 days ago and was talking about what we do in our for-profit life. And one of the people there who's only known as in our nonprofit life said, I had no idea what it was you actually do. Many people think that we just do our nonprofit side. But a big part of what we do in our practice at Wealth Legacy Group is in dealing in this succession planning area. And it takes 3 to 5 years to really, in most cases, have a good succession plan, because oftentimes the first couple of folks that you have in that place of succession, they don't work out for whatever reason. It's just not the right fit.
Or they get taken by another organization.
Yeah, because they are that good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you've got some wonderful slides that tell some stories about just key moments in your life, really defining moments. At the time, many of us, how many of you actually, at the time you were in now what you might call a defining moment, knew you were in a defining moment? Right then, you just absolutely knew this was a defining moment. There's a few of those. Dear friend Azim Kamisa, when his son was tragically killed, probably did not understand how many millions of kids he would come on to then eventually impact with this message for peace. So that was probably a defining moment for you that you knew at the moment. And especially working with the grandfather of the young man who killed your son, but in establishing this love and incredible ministry and impact. But for most of us, when those key defining moments happen, we don't know it. It's only later when we look back and we realize that was a key defining moment. And so I'm sure with most of us, at most of these events, you wake up that morning not realizing that something tremendous is going to happen in your day, in your life, that could define who you are for the rest of your life, or with those that you will be leading. But when you think about it from that standpoint, how many of us get out of bed that morning and say, Dear God, and go through prayer time, but just saying, I'm excited to see what's going to happen today, because this could be a defining moment in my life today, or for someone else that I'll be impacting with today. So keep my eyes open, my heart alert, and my step quick to be able to be all that I can be to help someone else. So Mike, walk us through this. You've got some great stories, including the wrestling match, which I'm really excited about. But
well, I think one thing that I like to talk to students about too is, defining moments are really important, but you have to be prepared for them. So the first part is preparation. You don't know what they're going to be, and many times defining moments are negative moments in your life that you have to turn into positives. So prepare, and that prepares whether you're studying at school, you're learning, you go to sessions like this, but just preparing for them. The second part is recognizing them. Recognizing this is a defining moment in my life. Many times we do it, in hindsight, as RJ said, you look back and say, oh, that was a defining moment. But to recognize it is a skill and a talent that you need to do, especially with young people trying to sort out their life. And the last part is something that we're all guilty of not doing, and that's acting upon them. How many times have you said, oh, I should have done that, I could have done that, and you had that gut feeling, just told you, this is the thing to do, and then time goes by, life gets in the way, something happens, and you just don't act upon them. So most of these things are hindsight that I look back fondly with, thinking these defining moments, but some of them you recognize. So that was me with the tongue out. My mother always used to say I would bite my tongue out, and but I was a high school wrestler. I was a really good high school wrestler, and I was a horrible college wrestler. Right, as I went to the University of Massachusetts, and one of my first real defining moments was we were beating Harvard. We actually only lost 2 matches. I was one of the matches we lost, but that's a whole other story. And so as we're there, and we were in Cambridge, and there was a chant, and I went to UMass, by the way. So we're the public school, and we're there, and all of a sudden it was. It's something like San Diego State and Stanford. If you look at that relationship, that's a relationship that UMass had with Harvard at the time. So we're winning, and all of a sudden a chant started. And it says, you're beating us today, but you'll be working for us tomorrow. Oh. And I literally, the hair on the back of my neck stood up, and I was like, first I was a little indignant about it. I was going, come on, that's not right. And then I said, no, it probably is right. If you have the natural pecking order and you let life just go the way that it normally would go, we'll be working for these guys, and we'll be lucky if we're working 2 or 3 rungs down from these guys. But so at that moment, something said, I have to change this course. I have to do something to make sure that I'm not working for one of these guys.
Yeah. Now, mind you, that's kind of like having a chant that's about the first thermodynamic law of thermodynamics or something. But so I got a feeling that they had to chant that a bunch of times from a whole bunch of other losses that they had along the way. But still, the point is well made.
Yeah, yeah. It was the first time I heard it. So then I figured, well, you know what? I had a very close family. And this is my great-grandfather, my grandfather, my dad. And they were all New York City firemen. I grew up in New York. And so I went home to my dad, and I said, we had break right after that. And I said, Dad, I want to get in business. And, oh, Dad, he goes, Mike, you should be a fireman or a cop, And the whole family ethos, I grew up in an ethos of heroism in my family. These guys were all stories about how they rescued people and all that. And also with civil service, this is back in the 70s, all my uncles would always say this, you draw the S first for security, then you draw the dollar signs through it. Meaning you get a job that's guaranteed, you'll get a pension. That's the way they did it. But I didn't fit into that mold. And plus, they were laying off firemen and policemen in New York for the first time in history, and that was in the 70s when New York was bankrupt. So my dad said, go find a role model in a business that you might be interested in. So that's what I did. A buddy of mine from the high school team's father owned a printing company in New York City, and this guy always had a brand new Lincoln Continental, and that was the car back then. The Lincoln Continental, the Mach 4, the Mach 5, that was it. If you had a Lincoln Continental, you made it. So that's what I did. I went and met this gentleman that owned the company and started asking him for advice on what I should do with the rest of my life. I was a business major at UMass, and so he wound up hiring me.
And this gentleman was, what, like 400 pounds?
Yeah. He was a second grade.
His nickname was Tiny.
No. Jim Gibson was his name, and he had a second grade education. Tough guy. Grew up in Brooklyn. Only had one hand. Huge temper, but he was a very hard worker, and he just did whatever it took to actually run a pretty successful business. And at the time, I thought it was like the biggest business. It had 60 employees, and it was a nice printing shop in Manhattan. So I started selling printing for him, and then I'll go right here. So basically, I learned as much as I could. While my senior year in college, I was learning all about the printing industry, graphic communications industry. And by the way, at that time, it's still an analog business. It wasn't a digital business back then. It was an analog business. That's important to note. So I went around and I learned as much as I could. I would study at night. I became almost an expert in printing technology, something that I never thought I'd be interested in. So finally, I get this call. Another defining moment in my life was Bill Conley, a guy from Shearson Lehman Brothers at the time, and it was we did financial printing, equity and fixed income research reports, called me up and said, listen, our printer let us down. You've been telling us for the last 6 months how great your company is. By the way, I haven't sold a business card yet, right? And he said, come on, we have a job for you. So it was a Friday afternoon, go up to the World Trade Center, and it was this, right in the South Building World Trade Center. They were on the 106th floor. Those of you who remember, the 107th floor was the observation desk, so they was one of the top floors. I remember going up there. I had a brown polyester suit on. I was shooting up, and the building was moving. The building was swaying in the wind, and I'm sweating. I'm nervous. I go in, and this guy, Bill Conley, says, "All right, Mike, we have this job. It's a 64-page, 8.5 by 11, two-color job. We need 10,000 copies, 8 o'clock on Monday morning. No excuses. Blah blah blah." So I said, okay, we can do that. Yes, we can do that. And then he said, wait a minute. He goes, Bob Pajero, my boss, wants to talk to you. This big guy comes out. And he says to me, and this really defined the way that I ran every business or any organization that I have. He looked at me and he says, okay, you've been telling Bill what a great printing company you guys have and blah, blah, blah. He says, let me tell you. He said, this is a $500 million offering we're doing. And we can't start offering this until you print this thing and get it delivered at Monday at 8 o'clock in the morning. If you don't deliver this at 8 o'clock in the morning, there's not a hole deep enough anywhere in the world that you can climb in that I personally I'll find you, I'll climb down that hole, and I'll kill you. That's what he said to me. And I'm thinking to myself, that's not very professional of him. I'm like, what is going on? So I said, all right. So back then we had mechanicals. You guys remember what mechanicals are? All the artwork are on these big 8.5 by 14 boards, and I have them under my arm in 64 pages, divided by 2. That's how many mechanicals I had. So I shoot down, go down the elevator. I'm crossing West Side Highway because right now where all those apartments are was just parking lot for the World Trade Center. And I hear this screeching, And I look, and there's a red Firebird coming towards me, ran the light from the parking garage underneath the Trade Center, hits me in the shins, and I go flying. I have these mechanicals like this, and polyester doesn't do too well on asphalt. So I'm going down, I have these things, and then these two guys were at the Vista Hotel right there, come running over, and they said, hey, listen, we're attorneys. You'll appreciate this one. We're attorneys. The guy ran the stoplight. We have his license plate number. Just lie down. We'll have the ambulance come. You'll be great. All I could think about was Mr. Bergero going, there's not a hole. You're deep enough, right? So I got up. I got in my blue Pinto, and I drove back to the shop, and we got the job, and we delivered 8 o'clock in the morning. Turns out that guy, that Bill Conley that we did the job for, was known on Wall Street as being the top purchasing agent, that anyone that had a tough job, other purchasing agents in Manhattan would call Bill and say, hey, Bill, we got a tough job, who would you use? So that was the reason that I was able to sell around $10 to $11 million a year in printing when I was 22 years old. Now at the time, that was $1 million was $1 million, that was a 10% commission. So I went from not being able to sell anything to 6 months later making over $1 million a year as a printing salesman. I said, this is great. And the whole secret was that you just do what you say you're going to do. You promise that you can do it. Whatever it takes, you do that. And that goes to the Hefty Man story that I used to work. It wasn't my factory, but I used to sell during the day, and I used to stay at the factory at night, and I used to watch every job go off, making sure, taking care of the printing press and getting them solders and whatnot, so they would, because it's all overnight printing. Jobs come at 8 o'clock at night, out the next morning. So I actually lived at the factory, and I used to take showers in a big Hefty bag next to a sink. And that was it, and I did it. And that built up a reputation that allowed me to do that. So things were going really, really well. And then all of a sudden, the father died, the guy I told you about. The son took over the business, and he didn't believe in paying taxes or anything like that. I wasn't a business guy. So next thing you know, they were shutting down the business. And I went kicking and screaming. I went and started my own company. Because we had such a service level that there were other companies that couldn't really deliver what we could deliver, so I had to start my own company to do it. And that's how I became, I think it was May 5th, 1989, I started Cunningham Graphics. So that's what defining moment.
And I want you to make sure you catch that as well, particularly for those, how many people are involved in sales, where you're going out and calling and sharing opportunities about what you can do? Okay, most of us actually, whether you're a professional or not. Did you get that? For 6 months, he'd been calling on just this one account with 0 orders. And there's a great saying I love about people that are lucky. And my favorite saying about luck is where preparation meets opportunity. Where preparation meets opportunity. Mike had been calling on these people consistently, showing up, giving them an opportunity to do business together. No thank you, no thank you. And then all of a sudden, the need arose. And because Mike had been planting those seeds, we never know exactly when it's going to start blossoming. And so we just keep showing up. So if you're feeling discouraged right now, and how many of us haven't at some point in our careers gotten discouraged, like, I'm just not going to do this. Remember Mike's story. And we just never know when it's going to be showtime, game time. Remember, I'm trying to think, there's a professional baseball player who would go in there and he said, he was asked, why do you continue to show up and give it 110% every single game? He says, because I don't know who is there for the very first time, that has never seen me before, and I'm giving that 110% for that person. It was Pete Rose, who had some other issues that came back to haunt him, but nonetheless, that was his hustle. Okay, good stuff. And we're only on the first 2, so keep going.
Okay, so we'll pretty much had some pretty great clients, all financial clients. So as I said, May 5th I opened up. We had 10,000 square feet. I had one press, and the press was it was a bold thing to do. We had to borrow $17,822 a month was the lease payment on that press. And the best day I had was signing that off and paying it off, I should say. But that gave you another lesson too, that there was you had PGs on everything. And a lot of folks, especially young students, they don't realize what a PG, a personal guarantee. So although you're a corporation, many times you have those PGs that you have to deal with. So when it's really a badge of honor when you can get that PG removed from everything you borrow on a corporate level. So that was another pretty neat spot. So one thing if you think about organizational culture, Edgar Schein is a great guy, and he a professor at MIT, and his whole specialty is organizational culture. And I always enjoyed his discussions on culture and how you can create a culture that actually manifests your values, your beliefs, if you're a young entrepreneur, and how you can build an organization so that you don't want people that mimic you, but you want people that share in the same values, and so that you almost have like a holographic brain and holographic organization where if you're not there, someone else can step into your shoes and handle a situation similar to you. And if you have the right people, hopefully in certain situations they'll handle it a little different than you, but better than you. So that was something that we decided to do, was try to build a culture, a culture of yes, I call it. And the easiest thing to say in the world is no. And the reason why the easiest thing, and many of you guys have been in both sides of this, where as soon as you say no, everything stops. Right. You don't have to work anymore. You say no. Can you do this? No. Okay. But you're not going to get those beautiful opportunities by saying no. So if there's any way you can have a culture of yes, where you say, yeah, I know, and believe me, that first story, I wasn't the first guy that Bill Cunningham went to. I was probably the last guy he went to. I definitely was the last guy he went to. Because he never did business. He called us all his regulars, no, 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 no. I was the first one that said yes. So that's a type of organization you want. You want people to say yes when it can, but you don't want to disappoint. So you have to say yes no matter what, but you have to deliver and you come through. So building an organization that has a great culture is important, a culture of yes. So how do you do that? How do we do that? And we can go to the next slide here. Is what we did is I learned early on is celebrate the small successes and meet people where it's a place in your organization that is different than the norms of the hallways and whatnot. And so we started a little running team. This is 1992. And I just started jogging, getting ready for the marathon, New York City Marathon. And by the way, our factory was right next to that park. That's Liberty State Park. That's, of course, the trade centers. This is, let's see here, that's me. That's my daughter, Christine. That was my then wife at the time. And these are employees, and these are customers. And that's my dad over there behind the bagpiper. And it was a corporate challenge back then. There were races, 4-mile races. We would enter. And it started with just 2 of us, 3 of us, and the people saw us running in the morning at work. And basically, it was a real nice culture. You got to learn about their families. They would learn about you and get the insight. So it created a culture, and a culture of storytelling, too. We tell each other stories. Now, I must tell you, our head of HR was Jamaican. So we had some ringers on the team. Yeah. And we used to win all these corporate challenges with our Jamaican runners. They were great. But anyway, so that was part of it. And then just celebrating those successes and taking that into the factory and into the office where small successes, we would just really celebrate them, and those successes got bigger and bigger and bigger. So here's something that we talked about where, RJ asked me, so tell me about a challenge, an obstacle that you had to overcome that could have been devastating. And we built this business, and it was a really good business, teamwork. We were delivering, we were customers loved us. And then out of no fault of our own, First Boston was a big customer at the time. They got bought out by Credit Suisse. So now it's Credit Suisse First Boston. And they were an international player. And they said, you know what, this woman right there with the white hair, Peg Filan, was my customer at First Boston. And she said, Mike, I got some bad news for you. He goes, we're going to pull the account. I said, why? He said, well, the new owners want to deal with an international printer that can solve all their needs around the world. And that was going to be R.R. Donnelly, which was the biggest printer in the world. And I said, well, Peg, can you give me 2 months to figure something out? She goes, I'll give you a month. Now, this is why education, the nexus between education and my life is so interwoven, in that I was actually going to school at NYU at the time for my master's. So I brought this problem to my classmates and to my professors, and I said, what am I going to do? Let's figure this out. So at the time, there was a paradigm shift that was happening, and the paradigm shift was from analog to digital. And our model was print and distribute. So we would print overnight in New York. New York would get it that next morning. The rest of the U.S. would get it a day later. Toronto would get it a day later. London would get it in 2 days. And Hong Kong, Tokyo, and whatnot would get the reports in 4 days. Okay? So there was a time lag. And there was $1 to print it and $1 to ship it on average. So that was what we did. So what we did is we reinvented it. And we said, you know what, why don't we do something, distribute and print instead of print and distribute, because you had digital technology, so we could distribute. Now, I know now it's no big deal. You're talking, this is way back when, right? So we distributed the digital files and printed locally. But to do that, I got on a plane, I went to Hong Kong, and I went to London, the two other biggest markets. And I met with printers that did what I did in New York City. Now, we were the biggest one because we were in Wall Street, and that's where most of the reports were generated from, but also Hong Kong and London were big. So I met with those folks there that ran the biggest operations there that were similar to mine, and on a handshake, we got together and we said, listen, if we bind together and we have a strategic partnership using technology to satisfy the needs of Credit Suisse, we can make this work. But we have to think alike, we have to use the same paper, we have the same quality control, we answer the phones the same way, the whole thing, and guess what? You keep whatever profits you get in your region, I'll keep whatever profits I get in our region. So I wasn't going to take any of theirs, they weren't going to take any of mine, but it was survival. Because we knew that if we lost Credit Suisse, First Boston, to Donnelley, all the other, Merrill Lynch, Goldman Sachs, Prudential, where they could follow. Wall Street and many organizations are like that. Once we have a first mover, the others follow. So these are the guys. This guy's from London, guys from Hong Kong. These are the two partners I had in the US, and this was at my house. We got the account. So that was cool, and we were celebrating there with Peg. So that changed everything, because then we went to be from a mid-sized regional printer to a larger global printer. And that basically allowed us, if you go to the next slide.
Well, actually, I was going to say, and as I understand it too, that was what your celebration was, getting new wallpaper.
Hey, that was good. That was good wallpaper back in the day.
I'm sure it was. Yeah. Okay. Well, now you can go on.
That's funny. That was a good audience. So this was a little just diagram of what I just explained, and we called it the World Research Link, and that was putting a title on an intangible. And then it was funny because it was like customers would say, well, do you have the World Research Link, to our competitors? And they say, what's the World Research Link? That's what we coined this little process that I just explained. So then we can move right on. So that enabled us, that plan that we put together enabled us to be able to take the company public. And the use of funds was, and there were three things on taking the company public that were in vogue at that time. And that was globalization, that was technology, and that was also roll-ups. And basically the roll-ups were, if you were in a highly fragmented market, as we were in the printing industry, you roll up like video stores did with Blockbusters, like Waste Management did with smaller waste management companies. That was part of our plan, to do that in the printing industry. It was highly fragmented. So we wound up to raising around $32 million. We went at the top end of the range, $11 to $13, and it was a great time. We sold 51% of the company and to the public. So then we became a public company, and there was if we go to the next slide, please. And then what we used that money, we bought the partners that we had in London and Hong Kong. We bought those folks, and we started buying smaller printing companies around the world to actually have other nodes on our network as far as our distributed print network. So that was actually around this time of the year. This was Chinese New Year. God, it had to be in 1999, Chinese New Year. A lot of drinking games over there. Okay, we could go forward, please. So then anyway, this was in Jersey City. That was our headquarters. That one was our headquarters in Hong Kong, and this was our headquarters in London. So we actually grew the companies in those areas.
So here's a question for you. I mean, you hear this story, well, that was Mike. That was then, that what. But the question is this: where are you facing a challenge that could potentially drive you out of business? And where could that challenge instead, where could it take you? In my office, we have two words that we do not use. We do not use the P word, and they're smiling over there because they know this. Any new person, which by the way, totally random, if you have any concerns at all about where the world is going and millennials and can they really get out of their own way, go hang out with those two over there. Lanisha, who's our newest member of the team, Peter, who we stole from Best Buy from the Geek Squad. Oh my gosh, these two, they're world changers. So, and my wife who found them, yay-hoo. But point of the story is, where are your challenges? And what could it take? And the solution might be just one iteration, one change. In our office, we don't use the P word, problem. Mike in his slide said, from problems to opportunities. Because as soon as somebody uses the word problem, what happens in your brain? Words are powerful. What happens in your brain is all of a sudden it shuts down. So if you are using that word, the problem word, especially if you're an attorney, it's just endemic, in the culture. Instead, eliminate that word, and it should be, we're having an opportunity here, or we're having a challenge, or we have a situation that has occurred, okay? But get rid of the P word. And then personally, I don't like the C word, cancel. Nobody ever cancels anything. They might postpone it. They might have we're going to wait for a while on this, but nobody ever cancels. So get rid of those negative words, get rid of those negative situations, and look ahead to say, where's the opportunity here to take it to a whole new level? And what Mike did is also, he surrounded himself, he went to people that were also doing what he was doing in an extraordinary way. Extraordinary leaders in these different places. Tell you what, we got mutual survival is on the line right now. Are you willing to jump into the battle with me? And let's go and take it on. So that's, where are you right now? And guess what? You are maybe that close to the most extraordinary breakthrough you've ever experienced thus far. Again, another defining moment. So, back to Mike.
All right. I have no idea what the next slide is here. Oh yeah, so we just kept on doing that over and over and over again, and it was, we never spent a lot of money on marketing at all. And what we did though was used every opportunity to get nominated for different awards or just put our information up there for different contests or lists or whatnot. And we found out we were starting to win a lot of this stuff because the results, the success of the organization just fed upon itself, and we were able to get some pretty good awards. And the Graphic Arts Monthly, it doesn't have it here, but we were the printing company of the year for around 5 years in a row. So we started making a lot of progress on all this without spending a dime on marketing. But then we were able to market that in itself organically. So that was a little secret for ours. So then here's what happened, and this shows you it's more than serendipity in that at the time, and this was back in 1999, the capital markets were starting to close a little bit. Now, we were a growth company, a public company, growth related, and you need capital to actually go. And you're growing, 25, 30% a year, even though you're making good profitability, you still need access to capital to grow those future revenues. And I saw that the debt market was closing down a little bit for mid-cap companies, small cap and mid-cap. So if you're under $1 billion as a public company market cap, you're considered a small cap company. And they were starting to close down those markets. And I'm saying, and not far after that, usually equity markets will follow the debt markets. So I started thinking to myself, we're not going to be able to continue to fund our extraordinary growth. And what happens is a small cap, unless you're growing 20% a year or more, your stock's going to take a big hit, and then you're going to run into other issues. So I started thinking about, okay, I'm going to sell this company, and now's a good time to sell it. So I started putting a book together myself to figure out, how I'm going to sell this company. And then, and this is where serendipity comes in. We had a customer of ours from Merrill Lynch, and we took over the in-house print shop at Merrill Lynch. They were a $20 million a year customer for us. And the gentleman that ran that whole part of the operation was at a Christmas party with a guy from ADP. Guy that ran this big division for ADP. And he says, you know what? He goes, I don't know who you're using for printing, but you should use this Cunningham graphics. They're a great organization. We outsourced everything. We saved millions of dollars and great service. So the guy, Rick Daly, who was the head of this thing at ADP, he starts thinking. And they had the brokered services group for ADP. So they did all the proxies and solicitations and distribution for all these public companies. They did that. There was a division of ADP. And then, so I got a call from his assistant the next morning. I do, but now no one knew, not even the folks in my office knew that I was looking to sell. I was putting this book together, and this was Christmas, 2 days before Christmas. I'm in La Quinta with my family, and I got this thing from the guy from ADP saying, would you consider a strategic partnership? And that's code for word for would you sell, strategic partnership. So the next day, that day at night, I told my wife I have to go to New York, and I flew to New York the next day, Christmas Eve. And I met with this gentleman, and he says, listen, we want to buy your company. We have great reviews. My boss says this would be the one-stop shop we're missing. We're doing everything except the printing. You're worldwide. You have the same customers we have. Now this would, close that loop. So that's what we did. We sold out to automatic data processing and became a division of ADP. And that was in 2000. And that was, and here's the interesting part of it. That was in April of 2000. And remember, we were a public company. And then I was so busy in this transition, I got all this money we got, and I just put it in the bank. I didn't even invest it. I know you're going to be upset at me, aren't you? I didn't even invest it. And I put this money in the bank because I promised these guys I was going to do this transition with them, and I worked for them 1 year. I told them 1 year I worked for them. Well, what happened in June of 2000? You had the crash. And it was just serendipitous that I had the money in the bank. It wasn't invested. So that was another, like that was very good fortune, and someone was looking out for me on that one.
That's it.
So, so then I moved out to San Diego. My brother, Jim Cunningham, some of you might know him as Councilman at Poway. He's also a labor attorney. We always used to visit him out here, and so I said to my wife, I said, where do you want to go? We can move anywhere in the world. She said, oh, let's go to San Diego. So that's what we did.
So again, catching those thoughts, serendipity. And we're going to come back to the fact that faith has played a role in your life all through your life, and I don't want to lose that as well. But the other part of it is, how many of you have a roadmap in your life to where you know even if there was something that could come along because it's on your list of goals for that year or the next 3 years or the next 5 years, and whether it's getting a strength trainer, or whether it's putting new carpet in your house, or whether it's some of the other things. But how many of you have written goals that you look at every day to remind you of where it is that you will have, at least at this point, a destination? On the back of our brains, every one of us has what's called a reticular activating system. It's a web-shaped group of cells right back here. And as we articulate what it is that we're going for, what our goals are, and Mike, in his case, he had articulated them in his head for sure, and maybe with some of his closest confidants. But preparation met opportunity. Again, that web-shaped, that reticular activating system kicked in. He just happened to meet the right person. But isn't it interesting that when we have things clearly laid out that we're looking ahead towards, that those chance encounters come along, right? So, okay. We got 10 minutes left. So
okay.
Table facilitators, be patient with us. I know but we're getting there. Okay.
All right, I'll move through these quick. Can we go to the next slide? I don't even know what's good. Oh, so when I was still running my business at NYU, I told you I went for my master's there. I started teaching at NYU, and I really enjoyed the teaching component of it. So that was one of my goals, thinking about I want to be serious about teaching. So to do that, I needed a PhD. So when I retired, I went back to NYU to get my PhD, and I had the most expensive PhD in the world because I was flying back to New York first class every other week to go to school. So that was very, very expensive. But it was a great experience, and I knew that to be credible in the teaching area, I needed that PhD. So I started teaching at San Diego State, and it was a really exciting time. At NYU, it was funny because we were so close to different bars and whatnot. I had all graduate students. I would take them for a drink after a test or whatnot, and I sort of did that here too at San Diego State with my graduate students. We go to the next slide. But one of the things that was really interesting, and it actually was a real defining moment in my life, and it changed a lot of people's lives, was when Katrina hit. Mm-hmm. I think it was around 2005, 2006. It was one of my first classes at SDSU I was teaching, and I was teaching a business planning class, and how to write a business plan and whatnot. And I had around 200 undergraduate students in 3 classes, and I had around 30 students in my MBA class. And I said to them, I said, you know what? I said, we still have to do the regular curriculum and whatnot, but why don't we put a plan together to help those folks that were affected by Katrina? So I said, I'm going to put $25,000 of my money up, but we have to have a plan that will turn it into $1 million by the end of the semester. You guys decide how you want to spend the money, how you're going to raise the money. We're going to put the plan together. And I said, because there's 2 things I can't teach you in this class. And I can teach you how to write a business plan. We can do all that stuff. That's everyone does that. But I can't teach you that feeling, that sense of urgency. That you don't have that in that classroom. You don't get that. And then the other part was the implementation part. You know, you can have all the plans in the world, but how about implementing? So implementing and urgency. So we laid it out to them and said, we put the team together and we said, what are we going to do? Well, they did a great job. So what they did is had a series, like 7 different events, from a concert to a raffle. They had a BMW that they raffled off a 1-year lease. We had that on campus, and we're setting up these tents every morning and selling T-shirts, all this stuff. We had an art auction, but these kids, and it was funny, that one of the funniest things was, even on campus, you have these young people that they were afraid to approach another young person, said, would you like to buy a raffle ticket, or would you like to buy a T-shirt? Because most people are really shy, you know, but they get out and make the ask and say, hey, I'm pretty good at this, it's a good cause. So they raised $780,000.
Wow.
In 3 months, and we wound up supporting businesses in Baton Rouge that had, and this was the interesting part, they had to show, and the students came up with this, that they employed at least 10 employees or more, and that this money was going to help them stay in business and grow, and they had a plan to make it through. And believe it or not, I spoke around 2 months ago with the woman that was the head of the Baton Rouge Economic Development Corporation back in the time, and I think the success factor was like 95% of those corporations that we funded are still in business today.
Terrific.
So
Wow.
that was really a turning point for us. So then there's a short stint. I went back to business for a while, like many of you probably have experienced or heard of. Many times when you sell your company to someone, many times they sell it back to you. And that's what happened with ADP. I got my company back for a year. I took a year and a half off, moved to England with my family. We rebuilt the company again, sold it again. I sold the company 3 times, actually. And then when I came back, the dean position opened up, and I became the dean of San Diego State. And one of the things was trying to build a culture at San Diego State that it would become a little bit of a change agent. And we have a great business school at San Diego State, and I was surprised when I went up there, all the professors were in shorts and flip-flops and flowered shirts and whatnot. And I said, and this caused me a lot of pain, but I said, you know, we're bringing donors in here, we want to really raise the image. You at least have to have a jacket around someplace, or, you know, whatever. So I got all sorts of letters written, you know, you can't tell us what to wear, that. And I said, it's voluntary, but it will help our fundraising efforts and whatnot, because we're bringing people in. And so we started doing that, and then when the money, we celebrated successes, we got money to come in, like Leonard Lavin, you'll see in the next picture, if we go right here. Leonard Lavin came in with a few $1 million. We started the Lavin Entrepreneurship Center at San Diego State. That's Jim Sinegal helping us give the award. That's President Hirschman right next to me at the time. We started celebrating, and they realized the money we were raising, these professors were getting stipends and getting money to help run different programs that they were involved in, and we celebrated that, and that just took off like wildfire, and then we were able to raise a lot more money and do a lot of better things at State. So then basically I was recruited to go over to National, and I never heard of National University while I was at San Diego State. Never heard of National University. I didn't know who they were.
No.
And I said, I'm not interested. I love my job at San Diego State. It's great. I'm giving back. It's being in and of the community. And the chancellor at the time, Dr. Lee, said, come over, just talk to us. So I talked to him, and then when I saw the organization and I saw the clients, the students that they had, which were mostly first generation, average age 33, 34 years old, life got in the way, smart folks, many of them veterans, single moms, single dads. They want to move, you know, increase their station in life. And our format, which is 1 class per month, it's online for 60% of the courses we have. All the courses are online, but 60% of our students are online. 28 campuses up and down the state. Great endowment. We support our students, student-facing. I said, hey, why not? So now I'm at it again. I've been here almost 5 years now, trying to recreate the culture at National University that is one that is, the whole purpose is to create that exceptional student experience and pretty much change the economies in which we serve, one graduate at a time, by people knowing what our deliverables are and saying, if you hire someone from National University, this is what you can expect, this is how they're going to be additive, and your organization is going to be impacted favorably by hiring one of our graduates. So that's what I'm doing now.
Well, I know we've been interacting, Peter. Was it Chris over at NU that we were kind of interacting with? And Chris had sent out an email And I said, well, just out of curiosity, how many people are receiving that email? It's over 20,000 people. I thought, my gosh, they're just touching so many lives here in San Diego and beyond. I mean, that's extraordinary, and it's accelerating. That's the beauty.
It's exciting. We have 150,000 alumni, and not just national. We also have, I'm the Chancellor of the system, so we have City University of Seattle. We have John F. Kennedy University, which is up at the East Bay area. And I have a smaller West Med college, and we have over 5,000 pre-college students. So we have virtual high schools and a few charter schools that serve the underserved communities, folks that can't make it in high school that need something else. We serve that community.
So, next slide. We're getting close here. And by the way, just to let you know, I was presenting a few years ago with a dear friend of mine, and we were in this audience, and just as we're walking out, he kind of nudges me, he goes, by the way, I just changed a couple things on a couple of your slides, just no big deal. So I come up to give my slide, and it comes up, I have never seen this slide before, and I have no idea what it's trying to say. And so I've been doing this for a while, so I bluffed my way through it and got through it. I thought, dodge that bullet. Well, then comes the next slide. Doggone it, he tinkered with that one too. I had no idea what that slide had to say, but finally got through that one. And then came the third slide, and I had to tell the guy, I have no idea what this slide is trying to say. The only thing I did on your last slide is it's kind of building, it builds a little bit at a time. So I didn't change anything other than that, but I just thought I better warn you.
All right.
It's like, somebody stole my slide here. No, it's there. Anyway, trust me. Stay with me.
So you'll see in the middle there, that's Denny Sanford, and that whole story was while we were working on those programs I told you about, before we even started those programs, I said, Denny, I have this old beat-up water fountain at our lobby of our La Jolla headquarters. And I said, I want to turn it into a living space, a teaching space where it can create buzz, have community nonprofits come in, present in there. We could have our MBA classes, our executive MBA classes. I really want to create this vibrant environment, and it would be a great place to promote a lot of your programs. So he said, how much is it going to cost? I said, I don't know, maybe around $3 million. And by the way, Dan, we're going to do it anyway, but I'd love to name it after you. And he says, so what's your ask? I said, oh, man, $3 million. He goes, I'll give you $800,000. No, he goes, I'll give you $1 million, and I want it done in 6 months. I said, okay. That was 6 months later. We had the ribbon cutting. And that was the first money that Denny gave us, was around $1 million to do the Sanford Education Center. And right now, he's given us over $70 million to fund all these different programs and the Sanford College of Education. So these are the programs that we do for Denny, besides the Sanford College of Education, which, by the way, our College of Education is national. It's the largest college of education in the state. 11% of California teachers come through National University on an annual basis. And we have more teachers of the year and superintendents and principals of the year than any other university in California. And then you had, so if we go back to this, so we have the Harmony program, which is a social emotional learning program, pre-K through 6, that teaches people, young children, to celebrate their differences and to really embrace, and in their own conversation, peer-to-peer, that whether it's gender differences, ethnic differences, socioeconomic differences, to talk about it. And it's a whole curriculum that's based around encouraging that cooperation and collaboration. And we have the top certification in the country for that. It's called the Castle certification, so that's exciting. Our Sanford Institute of Philanthropy, that's the one we had to start from scratch. Right now we have over 86 modules right now on everything from the art of the ask to social media to marketing. It's all, we have a fundraising academy that we're in our 4th cohort right now. So we do that. And then we have the Inspire program, which actually teaches pre-service and in-service teachers how to be inspirational in their classroom and be that impactful teacher that they can be. So if we go to the next slide, we can see this is the efficacy of, and where we're at, of just the Harmony program. We were able to take that, if you would put this in dollar terms, we're probably right now around a $40 million startup for the Sanford programs, as far as the people we employ and the impact we have. So in Harmony, We've impacted over 1 million students already. We're in New York City school districts, we're in LA school districts, we're in many of the schools in San Diego, but Cindy Martin we're working with very closely with. She's tough to get it in there, bless you. And then we're in over 44,000 classrooms with the Harmony program. It's really a wonderful program. And if you see on the next slide, I think I've taken that one out, but it shows that test scores for these students that are going through this program have increased. Bullying has gone down significantly. School not liking has gone up. And all of the cooperation is going up. And what's happening, the teachers are coming back and saying, you know what, you got to be in it to win it. They are spending so much less time with disruptions in the classroom that they can actually teach and learn versus these disruptions. Think about what's happened in Florida with the shooting and whatnot. These are the programs that can affect generations from now, students getting along better. You know, the genesis for this program, by the way, was Denny. He wanted to decrease the divorce rate in the United States. And if you think about it right now, all the solutions that we have are reactive, not proactive. You know, you go to counseling sessions and whatnot, and believe me, I've been there, I know. You go through that, well, many times that train has already left the station. If you ingrain these principles of cooperations, understanding, early on, it gravitates into the family life, into their future. So that was the huge, you know, bodacious goal that Denny had, and when we were really helping him through that.
Yeah, very exciting. I mean, Denny has said, you know, it hasn't worked so well for me in terms of staying married, but I want to make a difference in the lives of kids, starting from the ground up. And what a tremendous program. Shannon, that's the program you're with, right?
Shannon's half the reason that we got all these numbers.
That's it. So, Yahoo, way to go. Okay.
How do you like the culture there and the whole Harmony team and an amazing culture?
Yeah, I now actually work for all 3 of the Stanford programs, but every single one of them have such individual value, and just the culture's great there.
Yeah. And if you look at it, it's a huge distribution network now. So we're in all these schools around the country. We partner with other universities all around the country. So now when we have new products that we can push through this distribution channel, it turns on a dime. So,
Phil, I asked you the question, Mike, because you've got this wonderful background of just experience. And so I asked you, what have been some of the best lessons you've learned in life? What's some of the advice that you give? So Phil, could you advance? Let's get to the last slide and keep going. Sorry. There we go.
okay.
Yep, that's for you.
All right.
Yep. I guess it.
All right. No,
See,
I know, I've seen this before. But these are really some things that from my early days as a printing salesman all the way through what I do right now as Chancellor of the university, these are some of the things that are built into our organizational culture. And this is how I live my life, and this is how a lot of the folks in the organizations. And the first thing is thinking big. So, you know, everything you got to think, is it scalable? Is it scalable? So we have what needs analysis on everything we do. I've changed this one, by the way. I say eat what you kill. That's the salesman mentality, that if I used to look at things, if I wanted to buy a car when I was a salesperson, or if that car is $30,000, I have to sell $300,000 worth of printing to afford that car. That's just the way my mind works. And that saying, okay, what is the return on investment for whatever action that I do? In university life now, I call it eat what you grow. It goes over a little bit better. Of course, you have to add value. Another thing in any organization I'm with, if folks have to really get ingrained and buy into, it's not the big brother spending all this money. If it was your money, what would you do? And that's a simple rule that really makes sure that everyone's on a keel, a level keel, saying, you know what, spend the organization's money as it was your own. This one we talked about, just doing what you say you're going to do. You know, I had a wonderful opportunity to interview Oprah Winfrey around a year ago with the Sanford Education Center. And this is a little bit taken from, doing what you say you're going to do. She says just showing up is half of the battle. That's a big thing she has. And saying that, she said that really is interesting, and I think it ties all this together. She says nothing is wasted. Even the bad stuff that happens in your life, you draw from that bad stuff, and your future you is an amalgamation of your bad stuff, your good stuff, your family, your values, and it all comes together. Being prepared, we talked about hard, control your destiny. One of the things that I think I differ than a lot of the university professors and entrepreneurship programs is everyone says failure is okay. It's okay, you gotta fail a bunch of times. I remember I was talking to a university president, and he says, Mike, you have any good recommendations for a good business dean? I want to find someone that's failed a lot. And it's a true story. And failure is a byproduct of trying, and I agree with that. And there are times you're going to fail. There's no question. But if you have it in your mind, almost like RJ was saying before, certain words that he doesn't use, I don't use the F word. He doesn't use the P and the C word. I don't use the F word. Because once you start using the F word, it can lead, it's okay. It's okay. Hey, we all understand. You try hard, it's a risk, the odds are against you, you might fail. But if you start thinking failure and it's okay, especially if you're using other people's money, that's not okay in my mind. So anyway, that's a little bit of a difference. And the urgency we talked about, but the last two things I think are probably the most important. And that was the empathetic side. Remember the story about Bill Conley and all that, Bob Pajero and all that? I just didn't want to let them down. I knew what their life was going to be like if I didn't deliver that job, pure and simple. So if you get into that thing, and all of you in the room I know are like that, if you put yourself in the other person's shoes and you're empathetic in their situation, it gives you a whole different lens on how to run your life and your organizations. And the last thing is be thankful. I mean, there's not a day that I don't get up in the morning that I know, you know, Denny and I have these fights. He says he's the luckiest guy in the world. I said, you probably are, Denny. You know, so anyway, but we are both very, very lucky and thankful because, wake up every morning and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And thanking not only the Lord and folks that really helped you along the way, but also the team members and the communities in which you're in. Just be thankful. How can you give back? How can you do better? And that is more of a guiding compass than any of the other stuff that you have. Put yourself in a position to be thankful.
Well, and I know that comes from the fact that faith has been an important part of your life. And you alluded to it a second ago. Just land the plane for us here as we wrap up and go to our table topics. What has that role played in you in terms of bringing that together with all the things you've had going on?
Well, you know what, I think, and it's evolved over the years. I'm a Roman Catholic, and I used to go to church every week, and I don't every day, but there's every day, not every week, but there's not a day, as I said, that I don't come by and I'm thankful. And there's a difference that I noticed in my life with my spirituality is that I used to do a lot of praying when I wanted something, or I was in a bind. Like all those situations that could have been life-changing moments, I'd be on my hands and knees, I'd go to church, I'd say, please, Lord, help me out, blah, 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 blah.
As the saying goes, there's never an atheist in a foxhole.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, yeah.
And
bullets are flying, okay, there's got to be a God somewhere.
And then it started turning. I was saying, that's not really fair. And that's not the way it should be. I mean, you want to be there, you want to be able to ask, but you also have to have that thankful part. And thanking every day, thanking. And then when you're asked, this is my own belief. I'm not preaching to anybody. I'm just saying. But then when you do make those asks, you're not thankful because you want those asks to be rewarded. It just happens that way. So I've changed. I've evolved over my life. Instead of being just going in need, I go more in thanks.
Well, one of the things I love about that is God has made us as a vessel. And again, we're all shaped as a God-shaped vessel. And I have found that when I have a spirit of thankfulness and truly just looking at the things that I give thanks for, there's no room for self-pity. There's no room for anger. There's no room for a lot of the negatives. And so, and the opposite is true as well. If we're focused on what's wrong and why this won't work, guess what? There's not room for thankfulness. There's not room for gratefulness as well. So it's one of those things. And I remember, and I'll close with this because we're way over time, but isn't this great? Isn't this been fun? Ken Blanchard, who's one of my mentors, said, RJ, what would you have the next day if all you had left was the things you gave thanks for today? If you were just giving thanks for those things today, for my wife, for my friends, for our business, for our clients, what would I have tomorrow if I only had tomorrow what I gave thanks for today? And I just leave that with you as well. Not that we have to make this performance-based, but I thought that really changed a lot of my prayer, and I spend a lot more time now just every day thinking and saying, Lord, thank you for this and this and this. And I'm thankful for Chancellor Mike Cunningham to come with his, obviously a lot of stuff on his plate, to come and spend this time with us. Mike, it's just terrific.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you. I hope I didn't bore you guys today. So.